Less than a year after getting married, Caleb and I got divorced. When my friends asked about it, I just smiled. I'm just tired of seeing the same face every day. My friends said I was too cold-hearted, but they didn't know. These were the exact words Caleb said to make an intern happy. When I brought up the topic of divorce, Caleb was clearing the dining table, getting ready to do the dishes. He put the bowls in the sink and turned his head to ask me, "Why?" There was confusion and puzzlement in Caleb's eyes, but there was no trace of the panic and fear that I had hoped to see. After 7 years of being in a relationship, we had already regarded each other as family. We were certain that we would be by each other's side for the rest of our lives. We wouldn't leave each other easily. Finn came up wagging his tail, circling around Caleb's feet. I said, "Last night when I was sleeping with my arms around you, you pushed my hand away, saying it was too hot." Caleb seemed to breathe a sigh of relief upon hearing this. He turned around and turned on the faucet. The sound of running water drowned out his voice, making it sound a bit muffled. "Astrid, please don't be like this. What kind of a reason is that? We've finally made it to this point, living the life we've always dreamed of." I looked at him calmly and interrupted. I said, "I want a divorce." Caleb stopped and didn't say anything. Finn also sensed that the atmosphere was off at the moment. He walked up to me on his own initiative, lay on his back, showing his belly, and grinned. I didn't move. I just stood there, waiting for Caleb's answer. I don't know how much time passed before Caleb finally said, "Have you made up your mind? I'll respect your decision." My vision was blurred by tears. I wiped them away quickly, glad that Caleb didn't turn around at this moment. Otherwise, if he saw me like this, the determination in my demand for divorce would be halved. Finn finally stopped grinning foolishly. His tail wagged slower and slower until it finally stopped. When we came out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Caleb maintained his usual grace. He put the divorce certificate in his pocket and asked casually, "What about the things at home?" "I've already contacted a moving company." Caleb paused for a moment and replied with a He probably didn't expect me to act so quickly. So quickly that less than 2 hours after coming out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, half of the house was already emptied. When packing the last of the luggage, Caleb took the clothes from my hands, folded them neatly, and put them in the suitcase. His tone was natural. "A few days ago, you said you had nothing to wear, so I bought a few sets online. When you move to your new address, I'll send the clothes to you. It's going to get colder in a couple of days. Take care." Caleb patiently gave these instructions. I looked at his side profile, not knowing what to feel in my heart. My 7 years with Caleb finally came to an end at this moment. Surprisingly, neither of us was hysterical, nor did anyone cry and try to salvage the relationship. Both Caleb and I maintained the proper dignity. My departure seemed as simple as just going out for a short trip. 3 years ago, no, 5 years ago, if someone had told me that I would marry Caleb, I would have been so happy that I wouldn't have been able to sleep all night. I would have excitedly hugged Caleb, kissed his cheek, and told him that our efforts hadn't been in vain. We were finally together. If someone had told me that Caleb and I would end up getting divorced, I would have cut off ties with that friend, thinking that he wasn't worth associating with. I nodded. The moment I closed the door, Caleb seemed to have something to say to me. I turned around and didn't stop. There was too much furniture. By the time it was I who gave up on this relationship. When I stood at the door, Finn, who was usually gentle and cute, became unusually anxious. He kept running back and forth between Caleb and me. He wanted to follow me, but when he ran out and saw Caleb standing still, he ran back to Caleb's feet and bit his trouser leg, trying to pull him out. Caleb stood still. Finn was so anxious that he barked. "Be nice to Finn." I couldn't help but say. Caleb bent down and stroked Finn's head. "Don't worry." I nodded. The moment I closed the door, Caleb seemed to have something to say to me. I turned around and didn't stop. There was too much furniture. By the time everything was moved up, I was completely exhausted. I lay down on the bed, looking at the ceiling. My phone vibrated. It was a message from my best friend Scarlett. "Astrid. Are you crazy? You finally got married to Caleb after all that waiting. Why did you do this? I paused on the keyboard on the screen, thinking it over. The feelings have faded. There's nothing we can do about it. Scarlett's message came through the next second. Have you forgotten how much you used to like Caleb? You'd rather stay with him in a tiny 10 square meter rented room than break up. Now he's finally made it big, he's rich, he has a status, and he's still so gentle and considerate. You've finally come out on top. And you just want to get divorced like that? Who are you going to give this perfect husband to for free? I was still thinking about how to calm Scarlett's anger. But there was a commotion coming from the next room. Judging from the voices, it was probably a young couple. The guy said something and the girl started laughing. The laughter penetrated the wall and reached my ears. I was in a daze. I vaguely remembered that Caleb and I used to be like that too. The two of us were squeezed into a rented room without heating. In winter, he would tuck my feet into his arms. Astrid, I'm sorry. It's all my fault for not being capable enough to make you suffer with me. When we have money in the future, I'll buy you a big villa. We'll turn the heating up full blast, and the floor will be covered with thick carpets. You won't feel cold even if you walk barefoot. Okay, Astrid? His palms were extremely warm. Looking at his serious expression, I suddenly didn't feel that cold anymore. Caleb, do you have so much money that you don't know what to do with it? Why would you lay so many carpets? We both need to work hard. Then you'll buy me lots of delicious food and take me on trips everywhere. We'll see the world together. I leaned on Caleb's shoulder and heard his low laughter. Okay. Astrid, I promise you. Actually, I didn't think we were suffering back then. We both had a common goal. We were working hard to let each other live a better life. That message was stuck at the bottom of the chat box. Looking at it, I couldn't help but wonder how we had come to this point. I guess it was that day when Caleb didn't come home for a long time and didn't answer my calls. I called the company and found out that Caleb had already left work 2 hours ago. I looked out of the window and saw Caleb sitting in the car with a cigarette but flickering in his hand. He just sat there in the car for 2 hours, not answering the phone and not coming home. From that moment on, I felt that our marriage was nothing special. When I saw the name Caleb on the screen, I was still a bit dazed. It was our agreement back then that we wouldn't interfere in each other's lives after the divorce. But now, the phone on the table kept vibrating, and the ringtone rang again and again. It seemed that it would keep ringing until I answered it. I frowned and answered, "Didn't we say we wouldn't disturb each other after the divorce?" Astrid, Finn seems to be sick. The words of reproach got stuck in my throat. Caleb's voice was unusually anxious. Could you come and have a look at him? His appetite hasn't been good recently. He only eats a little of his favorite snacks. I thought he'd get better in a few days, but today I saw on the monitor that he just stayed in his kennel, not moving at all. My heart tightened. I subconsciously gripped my phone. I'll be right there. There was a pause on the other side after hearing my words, and then I heard him take a breath. I have to work overtime today and will come back very late. Don't rush to leave. Stay with him for a while. His words took care of my last concern. Okay. I said. I didn't expect that Finn would have lost so much weight in just 1 month. He was huddled up, listlessly sleeping in his kennel. Beside him was his favorite dog food. Usually, he would finish it all in less than 5 minutes. But now it had been left untouched from morning till night. Finn. I just called his name softly, and I saw his ears perk up immediately. He turned his head at the sound and saw me. I could clearly see his dark eyes suddenly light up. In an instant, it seemed that all his discomfort disappeared. He wagged his tail and pounced on me, licking my face. Woof woof. I stroked Finn's head. He excitedly bit my trouser leg and pulled me towards the kennel. Then I saw countless snacks hidden under the toys. So Finn was trying to exchange his most precious things for me to stay. Tears suddenly streamed down my face. The puppy didn't understand anything. He didn't know why his mommy and daddy had separated, nor did he know why mommy wouldn't come back. I hugged Finn and buried my head deeply in his fur. Finn's chin rested on my arm, and he quietly wagged his tail. Finn, be a good boy and eat well, okay? I said in a trembling voice. The emotions that had been deliberately suppressed surged out at this moment. I'm sorry, Finn. This was the first time I had cried since the divorce. Finn licked away my tears. He ate the dog food in the bowl voraciously and rubbed against my arms desperately. I understood what he was thinking. Mommy, I'll be good. Can I go with you? Finn was found by Caleb and me by accident. It was drizzling that day. Caleb and I came back from having hot pot and were clamoring for 2 more bottles of beer. A faint cry came from the roadside green belt. I made a shoo gesture, and Caleb cooperated by staying quiet. Caleb pointed at the green belt, and I went up to it following the sound. When I pushed aside the branches and leaves blocking my view, mud splattered all over me. I excitedly called Caleb's name. Caleb! There's a puppy here. I took off my coat and carefully picked up the puppy. When I turned to look at him, my eyes were full of excitement. The dirty puppy hadn't opened its eyes yet. It was trying to burrow into my arms, seeking a warm embrace. 2 people who weren't even sure about their own futures decided to raise a little life together that day. Caleb had never raised a dog before, and neither had I. The 2 of us looked at each other blankly, at a loss, as we stared at the whimpering puppy. Especially me. Up until now, I could be considered a life killer. I even managed to kill a cactus when I tried to plant it. I had never thought that one day, I would also be responsible for a little life. Caleb, there are chicken wings in the fridge. I'll take them out to thaw right now and feed them to it later. Please, it's at most a month old. It's still at the age of nursing. It needs milk powder. Milk powder. Caleb's exasperated voice came from behind me. I changed the direction of my hand that was reaching for the chicken wings and took out a bottle of milk. Look at what you're saying. Don't you think I know that? Caleb let out a shrill screech. Puppies can't drink milk. They'll get diarrhea. I'll go buy some. He didn't even have time to change his clothes. He opened the door in a hurry and didn't forget to give instructions. Wipe the rain off its body. Don't bathe it for now. By the way, turn the hair dryer to a lower setting so that you don't scald it. I carefully picked it up and used tissues to soak up the water on its fur. Caleb moved quickly. While panting, he fed it the prepared goat milk powder. Let's give it a name. I stroked its head. How about Finn? Are you so money-minded? Caleb raised his eyebrows and reached out to carefully wipe away the milk stains on its mouth. Hey, how can you say that? I said righteously. Dogs bring good fortune. If we name it Finn, our life will be richer and richer in the future. Finn can also live a good life with us, and then Finn will become the happiest dog ever. Caleb had no way out as I pestered him and smiled dotingly. Okay. Finn. Caleb put his arm around me, pointed at himself in front of Finn and said, "This is Daddy." Then he pointed at me and said slowly, word by word, "This is Mommy. Finn, welcome to our home." His voice was clear and gentle, and I could hear my own accelerated heartbeat. I turned my head and kissed him on the cheek. Caleb stopped talking. I felt that his arm around me tightened a bit. Finn is still here. I smiled and raised my hand to unbutton his shirt. It's still young and doesn't understand. Finn grew up day by day and gradually understood that Daddy referred to Caleb and Mommy referred to me. It would pick up the dog leash at 6 o'clock in the morning on time and bring it to the bedside. Caleb would rub his eyes, get dressed, and whisper to Finn, "Mommy is sleeping. Don't wake her up." When I woke up, Caleb had already prepared breakfast. The aroma of the food filled the whole room. When I opened my eyes, Caleb was leaning against the door, smiling at me. At that time, I would also share a piece of cake with Caleb when I got off work and would hesitate about whether to add an extra piece of meat or not. But when we looked at each other and smiled, we felt so happy that we were almost dizzy. At that time, I thought that so-called happiness was nothing more than 2 people, a dog, and a warm little home. At that time, we had nothing. All our friends around advised me to find a guy with better financial conditions, but I firmly believed that I would spend the rest of my life with Caleb. No one was a better match for us. No one loved us more than we loved each other. As for material things, we could earn them together. I had a good educational background and was able to endure hardships. I was sure that I would lead Caleb to a good life. But I forgot that people changed and I glanced at the time. It was nearly 1 o'clock in the morning. Caleb hadn't come back yet. I didn't know whether he was really busy with work or just wanted to avoid me. When I left with Finn in my arms, it kept licking my face and wagging its tail nonstop. The wind at night was very cold. When I passed by downstairs, I saw that Caleb had been waiting downstairs all the time. His gaze fell on Finn for a moment and then calmly moved away. "It's so late. Why don't you stay for the night? It's okay if you leave tomorrow morning. If you don't want to see me, I can sleep in the car." He stared straight at me and I shook my head. "No need. You'd better go back quickly. You have to go to work tomorrow, Astrid." His voice was hoarse. "Are you serious?" I saw his fist clenched tightly inside his sleeve. There was a sharp pain in my heart. I forced a smile. "Caleb, don't you think it's too late to ask these questions now? You agreed to the divorce so readily. I thought you had been fed up with it for a long time. You'd rather stay in the car for 2 hours than come home to accompany me." Caleb took a step forward. Under the dim yellow light, the corners of his eyes were red. "I'm just a bit tired. I just want a little space to rest." "Is that wrong?" "Astrid, if you don't like me being like this, I'll come back early in the future." The calm mask cracked a little, and his eyes were full of pain. "On every anniversary, I would buy fresh flowers and gifts. Whatever you wanted could be delivered to you the next day. In the past, I couldn't afford to give you necklaces, bracelets, rings, bags, houses, cars. But now I can give them all to you." "I don't understand." Finn barked once, interrupting Caleb's words. Caleb still wanted to explain, but I became impatient that he really thought that I wanted a divorce just because he was too busy with work and neglected me. He didn't hold me when sleeping and wouldn't come home early. He didn't respond when I talked to him. When I sent him messages, he only replied with a perfunctory What kind of reason was that? I remembered the 2 identical band-aids. The feeling of nausea rose in my heart again. There were still tears hanging from the corners of Caleb's eyes, but I was tired of his feigned affectionate look. I stared straight at him. "Yes, gifts have never been absent. And the more guilty you feel, the more expensive the gifts you give me are. But in your heart, I've changed from someone you would rush back to celebrate my birthday even in the rain to someone who can be easily dismissed with a few $1,000s. What about your time? You gave me the money, but where did your time go?" Caleb's body stiffened. I continued, "Serafina." I only said 2 words, but clearly saw that Caleb's face turned pale in an instant. There was also a bit of shock and disbelief in his eyes. I didn't want to talk to him anymore. I bumped into his shoulder and walked straight past him. Caleb stood there. His originally straight body bent down little by little at this moment, like a stray dog. The existence of Serafina wasn't much of a secret. It was the 6th year since we had been together. After Caleb's career finally started to take off, in order to hold our wedding earlier, he began to work overtime all night. Sometimes it was normal for him not to eat for a whole day. I deliberately learned how to make nutritious meals according to online tutorials and thought about bringing them to him. When I arrived at the company, Caleb was sitting in front of his desk, frowning tightly and looking through the resumes in front of him. The moment he saw me, his expression softened. "Astrid, why didn't you stay at home and rest during the holiday? What made you come to the company?" I handed him the lunchbox. "If you don't eat regularly, you'll get stomach problems." Caleb chuckled. "I still have to marry you. How could I ruin my health?" While he was eating, I casually picked up a resume and looked through it. I saw Serafina at a glance. She was in her early 20s, lively and youthful, with round eyes as bright as a fawn's. Most importantly, she looked a lot like me. My heart skipped a beat. Caleb came up and said naturally, "Right? I didn't expect there were 2 people who looked so much alike in the world." He took a sip of water and shook his head slightly. "It's just that her personality is not like yours. She's noisy and fussy. You were much smarter and more reliable than her back then." I subconsciously denied it. "She's still young. She always needs some experience." Caleb stopped eating and stared at Serafina's resume again and again. Her resume and abilities are okay. Let her come to work and try it out tomorrow. At that time, I didn't think that I was inviting a wolf into the house at all. Caleb affectionately leaned on my shoulder, looking at Serafina's resume with a calm and rational gaze. He even hesitated several times before agreeing to my proposal. I believed that he agreed to take Serafina as an intern completely based on the comprehensive consideration of the written test and interview. Maybe it was indeed like this at the beginning. Serafina was often scolded severely by Caleb for business problems. She would go back to her workstation with a sad face and be busy until late at night. Sometimes when I came to pick Caleb up from work, I would still see her staring at the screen intently, biting half a piece of bread in her mouth and typing on the keyboard with both hands nonstop. I secretly asked Caleb, "You put so much pressure on her. Aren't you afraid that she'll quit?" Caleb tightened his grip on my hand and smiled. "You could endure the scolding from the client back then. In order to win the order, you could also stay up all night to modify the plan to make the client most satisfied. Compared with you, this pressure is nothing. I've pretty much figured out her personality. Like you, she belongs to the type that gets tougher when facing setbacks." I couldn't tell what my mood was when I heard Caleb evaluate Serafina like that. Even though it was just a casual comment, I could feel his appreciation for Serafina between the lines. I didn't even have time to think carefully about what was wrong with it. Then I was caught off guard by Caleb's sudden proposal. That day was our 7th anniversary together. After having dinner, we walked slowly along the seaside, holding Finn's leash. Caleb's forehead was covered with sweat. I found it funny. "What are you so nervous about? We've been together for so many years. Why are you still the same as before?" Caleb didn't answer me. Instead, he quickened his pace and stopped in front of me, then got down on one knee. All I could hear was Caleb's voice trembling with nervousness. "Astrid, will you marry me?" Finn wagged its tail and kept running around between Caleb and me. It also barked, as if cheering for our relationship. Passers-by stopped one after another. They all showed excited expressions. Someone took the lead in clapping and congratulating, and there were shouts of encouragement from the crowd. "Marry him! Marry him!" I looked at Caleb and recalled the 7 years we had spent together. From 22 to 29, we knew each other and accompanied each other through the darkest and poorest times. I had seen him humble himself to negotiate contracts, and also witnessed his confident appearance on the stage. I had also stayed up many nights for him, so tired that I could hardly straighten my back, but I never regretted it. Tears fell down in an instant. I smiled and wiped them away, then bent down and kissed him on the lips. "I will." I was so overjoyed that I didn't see Caleb's suddenly tense expression. I didn't notice that his gaze had fallen on Serafina in the distance. She was as pale as a ghost, standing blankly under the tree. Maybe we had been together for too long. We were too familiar with each other. The passion of the newlywed life was quickly diluted by the ordinary daily life. Caleb would still get up early to walk Finn, and would still prepare breakfast before I woke up. I also stayed by his side as usual. Nothing had changed. I originally thought that this kind of life was not bad. Until one day I volunteered to walk the dog instead of Caleb. Caleb rarely avoided my eyes. "Astrid, aren't you usually the most afraid of getting up early? Why do you want to walk the dog today? Let me do it." Even someone as slow as I was could sense that something was wrong with Caleb. A cloud of gloom rose in my heart. I took the leash from his hand without hesitation. Finn barked excitedly. As soon as we got downstairs, it rushed straight out. An adult dog is very strong, and I was uncontrollably dragged by Finn and started running. I accidentally fell to the ground, scraping my knee. I subconsciously let go of the leash. When I looked up again, Finn was nowhere to be seen. I'd heard that dog thieves were rampant. I didn't know where Finn had gone. It would be terrible if he got into danger. I was both worried and anxious. I quickly got up, enduring the pain as I walked outside, calling Finn's name as I went. "Woof woof." I heard Finn's barking and immediately looked in the direction of the sound. But when I saw what was in front of me clearly, the smile froze on my face. The golden retriever was playing with another dog. The owner of that other dog was Serafina. She didn't seem surprised to see me. She curved her eyes and smiled sweetly. "Hello, sister. I heard it was you walking Finn today." On her face was the youth and beauty that I, who had been working for many years, no longer had. She stood there, and Finn came running over excitedly, biting my trouser leg, trying to pull me towards Serafina. Finn was actually a very shy dog and rarely wagged his tail at others. But now it was obvious that he was extremely familiar with the person and the dog in front of him. My heart ached fiercely. It was like Finn and Serafina had known each other for a long time. They were so familiar that Finn regarded her as family. And I had no idea about it. The pain from my knee finally caught Serafina's attention. "Sister, what happened?" "Finn, I told you not to run so fast every day. I have a band-aid here, sister." "Wait a moment." Serafina quickly rummaged through her bag. I stood there, stunned, not knowing how to react for a moment. The way she casually scolded Finn was so natural. I didn't dare to imagine what Caleb and Serafina were doing every morning when I was asleep. How long had it been going on? How far had it gone? Were they being ambiguous, hugging, kissing, or even sleeping together? My mind was in a mess. I didn't know. I didn't want to guess. Overwhelming exhaustion flooded over me. I took a deep breath, trying to maintain my dignity as much as possible. "No need. It's just a small injury. I'll go first. Finn, come home." I wasn't sure when I turned to leave. I was afraid that Finn hadn't had enough fun and would refuse to leave, staying by Serafina's side. I was also afraid that Serafina would pretend to be sincere and ask me to stay. Fortunately, Finn quickly ran to my side. Fortunately, he was still with me. Finn rubbed his head against my hand and gave a soft woof. I gripped the leash tightly, trying hard not to let the tears fall. "It's okay, Finn." "I'm okay." Actually, I was still hesitating on the way. What if I had misunderstood their relationship? What if it was just a coincidence? I pretended that I had just fallen and complained with a pout. Finn was running too fast outside and made me fall. It hurt so much. Fortunately, I didn't meet any acquaintances. Otherwise, it would have been so embarrassing. I clearly felt Caleb breathe a sigh of relief when he heard this. He carefully applied iodine to the wound. "I told you to let me do it." Finn has grown up and is much stronger now. He took out a band-aid from the medicine box and carefully stuck it on the wound. His eyes were gentle, and his expression was serious. But my heart sank to the bottom in an instant. Because the band-aid in Caleb's hand was exactly the same as the one in Serafina's hand. In the evening after dinner, Caleb went to do the dishes as usual. The TV was playing the TV drama that we used to love watching. Finn was circling around my feet, wagging his tail. I said, "Caleb, let's get divorced." Maybe it was for the sake of propriety. He quickly fired Serafina. I just found it funny. It was clearly Caleb who had the wrong intentions first, but in the end, it was Serafina who was fired and lost her job. Serafina came to find me one afternoon. Her hair had grown a bit longer, and she seemed a bit more composed than when I first saw her. Her eyes were still bright. Her demeanor was neither humble nor pushy. She really looked like me. The me when I was young. This was my first impression when I formally met her. I thought there would be another ridiculous scene of crying and the idea that the one who wasn't loved was the mistress, but she just bowed deeply and said, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to destroy your family. It's just that those involved are often confused, while onlookers see clearly. I wanted to help you." Serafina lowered her eyes, her expression soft. The image of Finn circling around her feet came to my mind. She was like that day too, looking at Finn gently, with a dimple on her face. Serafina smiled gently and suddenly said, "The rain wasn't actually heavy that day, but Finn was too young." With just this one sentence, I understood what Caleb was talking about. My thoughts were pulled back to that rainy night. I looked at her in surprise. "So I'm very grateful to you. Thank you for taking him home." Serafina said that Finn was found by her in the stairwell during her senior year of high school. He was probably only 2 or 3 days old and was so hungry that he couldn't even cry. She secretly hid Finn in her school bag. A few of them gathered around it, chattering and discussing, although the process was a bit chaotic. Fortunately, Finn grew up healthy later. Somehow the news got out. Her mother found out about it. Teachers and parents all said that study time is the most precious. We should seize every minute and second and not waste a single moment. When I came back, Finn was already gone. Serafina paused and then looked up at me. When I saw Finn that morning, I couldn't even believe it was real. Until Finn pounced on me and wagged his tail. I roughly knew the rest of the story. Caleb accidentally discovered this girl who looked and had a personality so similar to mine. When he learned that she had just graduated and was looking for an internship everywhere, Caleb offered her a job. Serafina naturally entered the company. She naively thought that Caleb's kindness to her was just out of appreciation, until the inadvertent physical contact gradually increased. And they had more and more private conversations. Maybe seeing that my face was pale, Serafina stopped. Her expression became even softer. She pursed her lips and smiled. Sister Chi, you don't think I was fired for nothing, do you? The matter of Caleb harassing female employees during his marriage has already been uploaded to the company's email by me. Take a look at the company group, and you'll find that they're already chatting heatedly about it. I was stunned for a moment and quickly took out my phone. In the photo, Serafina's face was blocked, but Caleb's action of getting close to the female employee was clearly photographed. There was a lot of discussion in the group. I didn't expect Caleb, who looks like a gentleman, to be such a person. I heard that he had a girlfriend he had been in a relationship with for 7 years. They got married last year, and this year. Now it seems that he probably got tired of it long ago. I really didn't expect him to do such a thing. I looked up at her. Serafina held my hand, her gaze firm and gentle. You deserve better. Later, the matter about Caleb was reported to the head office. The people in charge thought that his private life was indiscreet and would damage the company's image. They unanimously decided to fire him. When Scarlett heard about it, afraid that I might be too hard on myself, she came to comfort me. Astrid, I didn't expect Caleb to be such a person either. Don't be sad. There are plenty of good men. Seeing that I had packed my luggage, she paused. Don't do this. It's not worth leaving this city for a man. Finn wagged his tail and jumped into Scarlett's arms. Scarlett was dragged back a few steps and sat on the ground. I turned my head and smiled at her. How could that be? In these 7 years, Caleb has grown, and so have I. Since I can have the status I have today, how could I give up my current achievements? However, I've booked a plane ticket. The flight is tomorrow morning. I'm going on a trip. We had an agreement. Scarlett's eyes widened. She said "you" several times in a row but finally smiled with relief. As long as you're not sad about that little thing. She hugged Finn and stood up. I'd better hurry up and pack my luggage. Astrid, see you tomorrow. I felt an unprecedented sense of relief in my heart. Many things will become less important as time passes. After all, in these 7 years, I've been working hard too. It was for the sake of having a better future with Caleb. But now I don't necessarily need Caleb. From thinking that I couldn't live without Caleb to letting go later. It's hard to say what kind of feelings I have for Caleb now. The love from my youth has been worn away by the daily perfunctory deception. Only occasionally when I think of him, I'll feel sorry that we ended up like this. If he hadn't deliberately gotten close to Serafina back then. If he hadn't stayed in the car that time. There were so many things. One wrong step leads to many wrong steps. It was Caleb who pushed me away with his own hands and chose to fall into the abyss. The Caleb who braved the rain to send me birthday wishes with a smile, and my youth stayed forever in those 7 years. Along with that, the former Astrid who thought she couldn't live without Caleb and was stubborn also disappeared. Fortunately, it's not too late for everything. Fortunately, I've never stopped making progress. Fortunately, I still have my own career in life. Everything is still in time. Afterward, one Caleb never thought that Astrid would actually choose to divorce. Astrid's emotions had always come and gone quickly. He thought he could make her calm down by coaxing her. Who would have thought that Astrid had packed all her luggage that very night? When they arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau, Caleb was still deceiving himself. Maybe Astrid just wanted to scare him and would come back begging for remarriage in a couple of days. He subconsciously believed that Astrid wouldn't leave him. After being together for so many years, the two had already become one. Their figures were everywhere in each other's lives. How could they just separate like that? So when he received the divorce certificate, he wasn't as anxious and afraid as he had imagined. Caleb was certain that even if they got divorced, Astrid would definitely come back to him. The moving company was very efficient. All of Astrid's luggage was moved out, and the house was suddenly half empty. Finn barked continuously. Caleb was getting impatient with the noise. He had insisted on keeping Finn back then, also betting on Astrid's soft heart. As long as Finn was still with Caleb, Astrid wouldn't completely leave this home. Who knew that Astrid left, and Finn was also throwing a tantrum. He wouldn't eat or drink and kept barking whenever he saw Caleb. The house was too empty, making Caleb feel flustered. He used the excuse of Finn being sick to call Astrid. Astrid came as expected. Actually, Caleb hadn't worked overtime that night. He had arrived downstairs early. He hoped to delay it longer so that Astrid could sleep at home. Caleb could justifiably carry her back to bed, and then the next day it would be as if nothing had happened and their relationship would be reconciled. Caleb was still fantasizing about it when he saw Astrid come out with Finn in her arms. He tried to pretend to be calm, but Astrid calmly broke through his disguise with just one word. She said, "Serafina." At that moment, Caleb felt as if the world was spinning around him. He began to regret it. They were already married and could have spent their whole lives together. But he had messed it all up. 7 years, the 7 years between him and Astrid. Caleb thought he had disguised it perfectly. He didn't know how Astrid had noticed it. When and where it started. Caleb had no idea. All he knew was that Astrid wouldn't come back. That faint hope was shattered completely. Postscript 2. It was probably in the 6th year since Caleb and Astrid had been together. Caleb met Serafina, who was looking for a job everywhere. He took her into the company under some pretext. Caleb had an inexplicable fondness for this younger version of Astrid. He couldn't help but go and check on her from time to time. In fact, even if Astrid hadn't said to keep her, he would have asked the personnel department to keep her later. If Serafina encountered difficulties, he could just help her solve them. However, Caleb was sure that it wasn't love. The love of his life had been determined 7 years ago. He would accompany Astrid for the rest of his life. Until they grew old. With gray hair. Caleb couldn't imagine a life without Astrid, but he and Astrid had been together for too long. Life always needed something new. It was just a matter of keeping a proper balance. So he was always restrained when facing Serafina. But he forgot that women naturally have a sharp intuition. When Caleb came to her workstation for the 3rd time, Serafina deliberately mentioned that she had to get up early to walk the dog every day. Then she clearly saw Caleb's eyes light up. In their previous interactions, Caleb's behavior was so natural that Serafina had always thought he was single. Until that day when she saw Caleb get down on one knee in the crowd in front of Astrid and say, "Will you marry me?" An indescribable feeling of nausea filled Serafina's whole heart. She should have noticed it earlier. The milk tea that appeared on the table during afternoon tea, and the figure that always accompanied her when she worked overtime. Astrid was smiling so happily, completely unaware of how many ugly things her fiancé had done. From that moment on, Serafina began to think about ways to make Astrid notice all of this. While preparing to collect evidence, Serafina deliberately let Astrid catch some clues. However, when she saw the hurt in Astrid's eyes, Serafina suddenly felt a bit reluctant. Serafina thought, perhaps she should have told her the truth from the very beginning? Would she cover her eyes and continue to live in a daze, or would she leave resolutely and break off all ties with that guy? Serafina didn't know, but she knew that she must make Astrid completely give up on Caleb. She was such a nice girl and couldn't be ruined by Caleb for the rest of her life. The end.